but we're going to start with a little bit of inspiration, ladies and gentlemen. And to introduce our keynote speaker, I'm delighted to welcome up to the podium Peter Droll, Acting Director in the Directorate for the Innovation Union and European Research Area in DG Research and Innovation. Peter, over to you.
Thank you very much, Jackie. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Vice President, Commissioner, Excellencies, it's a pleasure to be here with you to open up the next step to an era of innovation. Vice President, you are a very fast man. When the Commission President Juncker announced within 3 months of entry into office an investment package of 300 billion, you were one of the persons behind tabling that proposal 6 weeks after, so faster than that. Following you on Twitter, we have seen that you have been visiting practically all member states by now and discussing buying agreement, buying buy-in to the investment package, a fantastic achievement. And those living in Brussels also have seen that you run the 20 kilometers of Brussels in a fantastic time of less than 1 hour 30. That's fast. I think we need to be fast, and this room, and I'm very grateful, ladies and gentlemen, we filled the room, not only here, but also on the web and at our rooms downstairs. We are very curious to hear from you what is in the investment package in the overall policy for a New Start for Europe, for research and innovation. How fast will these investments be in the real economy for the benefit of the citizens of Europe? So we are very happy, delighted to have you here. The floor is yours. I heard that you would be ready to accept some questions if time allows. We are very grateful for that. Vice President, please, the floor is yours.
Good morning. Thank you very much for your very encouraging and kind words. Very nice to start the day by hearing such a nice and flattering expressions. Honourable Minister, Honourable Chair of ITRE Committee, Prime Minister Jerzy Buzek, dear Carlos, Commissioner for the Future, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for giving me a chance to speak with you today in this very respected seminar. As the Commission's Spring for Economic Forecast showed, we are currently witnessing cautious sign of economic upturn across Europe. I think we can all agree that Europe will only be able to make a new start by turning this upturn into lasting and solid economic recovery. This is why kick-starting economic growth and job recovery has been the #1 priority of this Commission since it took office. Through the European Semester 2015, the Commission presented an integrated approach on how to achieve this goal, built on 3 pillars. First, boosting investment through the Investment Plan for Europe and the European Fund for Strategic Investment. Second, renewed commitment at EU and Member State level to implement structural reforms. We pay more attention to structural reforms than before. And thirdly, the pursuit of fiscal responsibility at the national level. Research and innovation are undisputed drivers of long-term economic growth and job creation, and they therefore play a crucial role in the Commission's strategy. Beyond the direct impact of R&D, it has also a broader economic impact, which translates into greater market shares for technologies, higher labour and total factor productivity, industrial competitiveness and efficiency in the use of resources. In other words, it creates sustainable growth. We should not forget that today already Europe continues to be a strong performer on the global research and innovation scene, with a lot of potential to capitalize on. At the same time, however, new players are emerging. In 2011, more than 70% of the world's knowledge production took place outside the EU. Some emerging economies have seen their R&D intensities rise at much higher speed than the EU. For instance, Since 1999, China's spending on R&D has increased by more than 20% each year, and it now ranks top in the world in overall spending in R&D. Europe's productivity gap vis-à-vis other advanced economies, and notably the United States, has increased since the mid-1990s. Those are clear challenges which only a strengthening of Europe's research and innovation effort can tackle, and this is why increasing investment in research and innovation to 3% per GDP by 2020 continues to be one of the headline targets of the Europe 2020 strategy. From personal experience, I have to say I was fascinated when I visited a science and research center in Dublin called Amber. By the way, is there anybody from Amber here? Yes, good to hear. That visit was part of my roadshow in Ireland a few weeks ago. We were shown the wonder material graphene being made and met a scientist who is developing 3D parts to help combat heart disease. Those clear examples of importance of investing in R&D and supporting our scientists in Europe. But increasing investment is only one side of the coin. We also need to invest wisely and ensure that investment pays off. Therefore, research and innovation feature prominently among those areas where member states need to continue making structural reforms in order to get more impact from their investment. Let me get next to the topic I have been talking about a lot lately. The Commission's investment plan for Europe, which is one of the key elements in implementing the integrated approach of the European Semester 2015 process. With the investment plan, the Commission and the European Investment Bank are providing a new kickstart to growth and jobs, which is urgently needed in Europe. Through the investment plan, public money will be used to leverage and encourage private investment. Research and innovation are clearly mentioned among the objectives that can be supported through EFSI, European Fund for Strategic Investment, which therefore complements and reinforces one of our main investment fund programs, Horizon 2020. I'm also happy to note that the first EFSI projects, which have been approved for pre-financing by EIB until EFSI is up and running, have a clear focus on research and innovation. By targeting, for instance, healthcare research in Spain and industrial innovation in Italy and Finland. In addition, on 13th of May 2015, the European Investment Fund signed an agreement with the French National Promotional Bank, BPI France, to pre-finance innovative SME projects under the investment plan. But increasing investment is not enough. We also need further structural reforms to improve the framework conditions for investment in Europe. That is why our aim is to create a real European single market area. The new Commission has also been very active in this respect. For instance, the initiative for Capital Markets Union is a key element for investment plan. With the CMU, Capital Markets Union, the Commission will explore ways of reducing fragmentation in the financial market, diversifying financing sources, strengthening cross-border capital flows, and improving access to finance for businesses, particularly SMEs. The goal behind the CMU is to develop a more diversified financial system complementing bank financing with deep and developed capital markets to unlock the capital around Europe, which is currently frozen, and put it to work for our economies. We also need to further deepen the single market for innovative goods and services. And here we have taken an important step with the Digital Single Market Initiative. The Internet and digital technologies are transforming our world. But existing barriers mean that citizens miss out on goods and services. Internet companies and startups have their horizon limited, and businesses and governments cannot fully benefit from digital tools. It's time to make the EU's single market fit for digital age, tearing down regulatory walls and moving from 28 national market to single digital market. This could contribute 415 billion per year to our economy and create nearly 4 million jobs. The Commission recently announced its Better Regulation initiative, and this is also a key for research and innovation. Overly prescriptive and overly complex regulation hinder innovations and deter investment. A smart use of regulation, on the other hand, can stimulate innovation, and the Better Regulation package includes specific tools to assess the impact of new regulation on innovations. Yet putting in place attractive framework conditions for investment is also a responsibility of the Member States. And allow me to stress that national research and innovation policies are an integral element of this. The Commission monitors and assesses national research and innovation policies as part of the European semester process. As part of the package adopted on 13th of May this year, the Commission identified a number of cross-cutting challenges that need to be tackled in order to increase the quality of Europe's research and innovation system. This includes, first, the quality of public research and innovation system. Second, leveraging business investment through public-private cooperation. And thirdly, creating an investment-friendly environment for business research and innovation. But it's not only about money. The question is how public money is used. Universities should become more as a startup hubs, which could encourage SMEs, entrepreneurs, to benefit from research. European universities should also merge. In the era where our population is shrinking, it doesn't make any sense that every single university is offering full service, meaning covering all the sciences. Just a couple of practical examples on how public money is used for research and education. The country I know best scores pretty well in the results of basic education. But if you look at the resources spent for basic education, it's well under the average of OECD countries. So good results are not always dependent on the money which is used for education. It's more how money is used. At the same time, the same country is number 3 in the world if looking at how much money is spent for fundamental research. But at the same time, the results does not correlate with the money which is used for fundamental research. And again, it's more a question how money is used. We live in an ever more interconnected world. Apart from the remarkable innovative products research laboratories across Europe are producing, the system, performance and organisation of the way research is conducted is changing as well. In order to maintain its global competitiveness, Europe needs to increase investment in R&D. This will ensure we stay on the sustainable growth path and create new and rewarding jobs, which is a key priority for this Commission. The shift we now see towards an opening up of science is an integral part of the open research system we are creating through ERA and European Research Area. The Commission is preparing European Open Science Agenda as part of the implementation of Digital Single Market, which will also require ambitious and coordinated action at national level. Openness and innovation go hand in hand. Countries with open and attractive research system are strong performers in terms of innovations. This is what the ERA reforms will bring about. An open European research space where knowledge and ideas will feed each other. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I'm eager to hear your points and your advices, and also ready to answer your questions if there are any. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Vice President. Thank you. Thank you so much. So that crucial role of what we're talking about in terms of the broader economy and that impact that these investments can have. We have about 7 or 8 minutes for questions. Does anybody have a question for the Vice President? Please, sir, could you introduce yourself and please be brief so we can squeeze a few in. Thank you.
My name is Christoph Buch. I'm working with Helmholtz Association, and I'm very much interested in the relation between furthering science and copyright. And one thing that really impacts the research organizations and the researchers here is that we have exceptions in copyright which are usually coupled on working non-commercial. Now you're asking the universities and the research organizations to be more commercially friendly. That is a difficult thing to bring together.
Okay, it's a short question, but copyright is never a short answer. Any other questions for the Vice President? Yes, please, sir. You press the button in front of you and the light comes. That's it.
Yes, Ernst Schmachtenberg from CISA, that's a group of the technical universities in Europe. I have a question concerning the venture capital. If we compare the situation in Europe with the American states, we see we don't have enough venture capital to bring new companies out of the universities. What do the Commission plan to change that situation? Okay, in the interest of efficient use of time, I'll just see if there are any others before we come back on that question. Okay, Mr. Vice President, if you would pick up on those, and then I have a question for you to close.
Thank you very much. The harmonization of copyright is essential when creating digital single market, but of course we have to take into account the specific requirements in some specific areas, for instance in the area of science. But and I know that Carlos has been raising this issue constantly in our meetings, so we have to take into account what science and scientific publications needs, what kind of copyright system is the best suitable for scientific purposes. But if I count science away from the copyright regime, it makes a lot of sense to harmonize copyright regime in Europe. At the time, right at the moment, we have 28 different copyright regimes. And it's obvious that it holds back investment and job creation. So basically, customers don't have legal opportunities to pay of the creators' products if you happen to be in other countries. Of course, this is too simplistic way to put it, but at the same time, we have to remember that creators have a right to get a fair share or fair price of their products. So I don't understand any good reasons why we should have 28 different copyright regimes in Europe. But I understand that we need to harmonize it, because it's good for businesses, it's good for creators, and it's good for consumers, it's good for our innovations, innovative SMEs, to have level playing field. I don't think the Americans suffer that they have harmonized copyright regime in all 50 states. If that would be a problem, then they should establish 50 different copyright regimes in the United States. So why Europe should be different in this respect? Venture capital, it's very true what you say. If you compare the size of the European venture capital fund to American ones, the average size of European venture capital fund is 60 million euros. Whereas the American average fund is 280 million. So this again tells that the culture, venture capital culture or capital market is much better developed in the United States than here in Europe. We have two answers to this question. First and long-term answer will be the Capital Markets Union. Jonathan Hill, our colleague in the Commission who is in charge of financial services, he is in charge of Capital Markets Union, and as a part of this, he will do concrete proposals how to encourage to grow the size of venture capital funds. And also, he will bring proposal which aims to create high-quality securitization market, which should help SMEs and startups raise funds from the capital market. So there will be several proposals in order to create better environment for venture capital market to grow in Europe. But this will take some time, hopefully not more than a couple of years, to get all those proposals through. But of course, then more years to be implemented and to be in full speed. But in meanwhile, EFSI, the new risk fund, will address this market failure. We will basically double the amount of resources what the European Investment Fund will provide for SMEs. And we will concentrate especially to equity financing and venture capital type of financing, because of the reason you mentioned. So this is not only about whatever the investment or providing money for SMEs, but this is a crucial part of creating new innovations. Because many times we all have heard stories that there is a very innovative small company which already have a product, and they would like to take it to the market, or it's already into market, but they would like to scale it up. And it's almost impossible to get, let's say, 8 million for these purposes. Or even more typical case is that venture or the startups is running deficit like they always do during 3-5 first years, and the banks naturally don't finance deficit. So there should be better functioning venture capital market in Europe, and that's why we use the European tools meanwhile before we have a well-functioning capital markets union.
Thank you. Could I just ask one last question, Mr. Vice President? You talked about the EU investment plan, the hoped-for leverage effect and so on, and of course you have already announced those first projects that are being financed through it. We've also talked about Horizon 2020, about the EU structural funds, improving things, national funding, public-private funding. How do you make sure that all these things are aligned so that we deliver maximum bang for bucks? Because that's one of the reasons the European research area is all about coordinating, cooperating, reducing duplication. How do we make sure that all these things together really do have the impact that you're hoping for?
First, we will help member states to use structural funds as a co-financing element with EFSI, the new risk fund, which is part of EIP, to finance, for instance, innovations or research premises. So we will communicate how to do it, how to use structural funds together with the EIP financing, and we want to make sure that this also happens. The second thing, we want to encourage member states to use structural funds as a financial instrument to SMEs. Spain is a good example of this. There are some other countries who have used financial instruments, or they have transferred funds, structural funds, to financial instruments, and it has helped a lot to get, for instance, risk financing for SMEs, which is precondition to turn science to innovations and products and jobs. Third element, we have to pay attention how social fund money is used. Unfortunately, it has not been in all cases used for education and research as much as at least I personally would have liked. Because if I had all the power in Europe and I could do only one thing in favor of or for better Europe, I would pay attention to teachers' education, to quality of teachers' education. I have visited 24 member states since the beginning of the year, and I have been surprised, to put it diplomatic way, how big differences there are in the quality of teachers' education. Also, how big differences there are in the how teachers' profession is seen. In some member states, the average age of teachers in basic education is close to 60. There's nothing bad with mature teachers, but it just tells that the teacher's profession is not the kind of dream job for young generations in all the member states. Why I'm talking about the teachers' training? Because I personally believe that this is the one single factor which have the greatest impact to the quality of science, the quality of working life, the quality of skills, the quality of innovations, and also to economic growth and job creation in Europe. How Europe differs from our competitors, or how it could differ from our competitors. One thing could be, if the average skill of our working force would be higher than the average Chinese, then we would be quite safe. And that's why it's not only about the highest level of research, but also the whole chain from the basic education to the highest level of science. And that's why we have to use structural funds and especially social funds much better in order to support knowledge-based economy.
Thank you very much, and that very much echoing Commissioner Moedas when he spoke yesterday and identified some of the challenges, talked about the fact, and I think the phrase you used was, we too rarely succeed in translating our research results into marketable products, to commercialisation. So a very fundamental issue there. Ladies and gentlemen, will you join me in thanking the Vice President very much indeed for a very inspiring start to our second day. Thank you so much.